Saving for retirement, of having kids and being able to afford childcare is like out of reach for so many people. It's just like unthinkable.
Yeah.
How in the richest country in the world did we get there?
We are here on State Street for part 2 of Candid Politics, where we take walks with some of the candidates who are running for governor in Wisconsin. Today, we're going to talk to Kelda Roys, longtime senator in the Wisconsin State Assembly. We're going to ask her about how she feels like politics have changed since she's been in politics and how she wants to change it going forward. Let's go see what she has to offer Wisconsin. Well, thanks for coming out today.
Yeah.
How often are you on State Street here? Is this kind of a
usually twice a day, at
Really?
least. Yeah. Because I'm generally a bike commuter, and so this is right along my route.
Nice.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about, I know you grew up here in Madison, at least for
part
since
of the
first
time.
grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
How, what kind of areas were you around here in Madison? What was life like growing up here?
Well, it wasn't as cool as it is now. Madison's obviously grown a huge amount since I was younger, and State Street's always been the heart of Madison and the Capitol Square.
Yeah.
And it's been, really surprising to see the changes, and particularly the housing development and the just explosion in population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of things did you like to do around here as a kid? What were you like as a kid?
Well, I was a huge dork. I mean, I was a nerd, so I liked to read books. I would come down at State Street and, get a coffee and pretend I was an adult and read books. I was a volunteer at Briar Patch, which is a youth services organization. So I did peer education. I worked on the teen helpline, which is a counseling hotline. Did some other things with Briar Patch. I was very involved in theater and music, so there was a lot happening. I would go see live music shows a lot at the Barrymore.
So at what point, you said you're sort of into theater, at what point did you start to take an interest in politics or kind of bigger issues? Was there something that sparked your interest, or?
I've always been kind of interested in politics. When I was in 3rd or 4th grade, I read an article in the newspaper, which we got printed at our house, about the AIDS crisis, and I took it upon myself to write a letter to the Surgeon General. At the time, this was under Ronald Reagan, it was C. Everett Koop. And I said, hey, you need to do more about this. We have to take more steps to halt the AIDS crisis. And he wrote me back and sent me a little brochure.
Yeah. Was that just something that you heard? Was there anything in your life that made you start to care, or was it kind of just mostly things that you were hearing from the news and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, we talked about current events. They made it really clear in my family that we all have a role to play in making the world better, right? That we're very lucky to grow up in a place like Wisconsin that had great public schools where, kids had opportunities. And even though, we were middle class, we didn't have a lot, but we certainly had enough. And it was so clear to us from our parents that we should really feel grateful for all the luck that we've had, luck of birth and accident.
Yeah.
And when you have that luck, you need to do your part to try to pay it forward. Those were very much things that we talked about, political issues and, economic justice, social justice.
And so when you first started getting into politics, would you say that the 2009 was your first position?
That's when I was first elected to the State Assembly, but I had been in politics for a long time before that, yeah.
What were kind of your biggest issues when you were first getting in there? What did you really care about, really want to change?
Well, in my first assembly race, actually, healthcare was a big issue, right? That's when Obama got elected and was working on the Affordable Care Act. So in that first session, I helped expand access to health insurance for 80,000 previously uninsured Wisconsinites. And that was a huge victory and obviously transformational for those people who went from not being insured to actually being able to get health care. Reproductive rights was certainly an issue. I had been for 4 years prior the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Wisconsin, so I had worked a lot in the Capitol to stop bad Republican bills, and had actually had success in passing the first pro-choice legislation in 30 years in the state, even though the Republicans and an anti-choice majority controlled the assembly at that time. But we were able to kind of force them into it by building a really strong and broad campaign.
Yeah, so I'm interested, like, you are obviously somebody that's been involved in politics for a long time. I think it would be like an understatement to say that we're in a different place politically right now. Like, how have you seen politics change throughout your time being involved in the legislature in Wisconsin?
Well, it's definitely gotten more extreme. The right, the Republican Party in this country is unrecognizable. The idea that you might want to have a party that represents small government and low taxes and fewer services, that's comprehensible to me, even though that's not my bent. You know, I think government is here to make our lives better, and then otherwise stay out of the way, stay out of our personal lives. But now we have a party that has become authoritarian, right? That is trampling on the most fundamental values that we have as Americans, the idea of voter participation, right? One person, one vote, and people being equal in our democracy. The idea that there's due process and the rule of law, and that no matter who you are or where you're from, the government has to play by the rules and shouldn't be weaponized as a political cudgel. And all those things are being suspended by the Trump administration right now with the complete acquiescence of Republicans. And that's horrifying to me. You know, we've come so far from the idea where we're, you know, Democrats are trying to make sure we have better investment in public schools and higher education, and Republicans are saying no. Now we're at the idea where Democrats want to see real investment in public education and the University of Wisconsin, and Republicans are celebrating the idea of closing campuses, right? School consolidation. I mean, it's really just, we've in a way lost that idea of the common good because the Republicans have become so extreme.
In your mind, how did that happen? Is it just Trump kind of as a figure alone, or is it like a decay that you feel like you've seen in that side of the party? It's definitely not Trump alone. I mean, he is the figurehead of this movement. He gave a lot of people, I think, permission to let the most bigoted parts of themselves come out. And I think, and he really also tapped into, I think, dissatisfaction about the political system that has been building over many, many years. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that economic opportunities for people have been slowly flattening. For 40 years, we've had incredible productivity gains where workers are working harder, they're producing more, and yet a lot of workers are just struggling to get by. And 2 generations ago, they would have been middle class. And now the idea of like buying a house, of saving for retirement, of having kids and being able to afford childcare is like out of reach for so many people. It's just like unthinkable. How in the richest country in the world did we get there? And we got there because we've got billionaires and big corporations taking an ever greater share of the wealth that all of us as workers produce. And do you see that at a state level? Like, obviously you can see Elon Musk and you can see sort of big money at the federal level. Like, do you see at the state level politicians that you feel like are sort of bound by corporate interests, or that don't want to do the thing that maybe is the right thing to do?
Definitely.
Because of money?
In Wisconsin, our minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. We haven't raised it essentially in my adult life. And that is because conservatives have blocked it again and again and again. And why do we block the minimum wage? Because it's very beneficial to the biggest corporations that want to pay poverty wages and force their employees to rely on, public systems, whether it's, Medicaid, Badger Care, whether it's nutritional and food assistance. It benefits them to be able to underpay their workforce. But of course, it hurts everything else. It hurts all of our economy when workers don't have enough buying power and people are barely able to survive. So we've got a big structural problem, and it's not just at the federal level, it's very much at the state level too. Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you, as a governor, kind of reconcile trying to pass legislation with a party that you feel like is so broken and not actually working towards the best interests of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to go issue by issue, and you have to find legislators that are willing to work with you, and it takes a lot of time, and it actually takes a lot of skill. And but I have been doing this work for 25 years in various different capacities as a legislator, attorney, small business owner, nonprofit executive. And I'm really proud that my record has a lot of bipartisan wins. You know, just this session, I was able to help work with Republicans to pass a bill that my governor, Governor Evers, had vetoed several times to help expand access to nurse practitioners. A lot of parts of the state suffer from very significant healthcare provider shortages, and that's meaning people can't access basic care. So this bill is going to help alleviate that, particularly in rural areas and in underserved parts of the state. And you know, for a long time I was the only Democrat on that bill, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Not necessarily for my district, but for especially the rural parts of the state. And I was willing to stand up and champion that, and eventually built enough Democratic support that we were able to get it passed and finally signed into law this year.
What to you is like the vision that the Democratic Party should have going forward? Like, I think that it feels, at least to me, like the party's a little bit lost after Trump got reelected, and people need to see some sort of like, this is what we can put our faith in going forward. Like, to you, what is that vision?
To me, the reason I'm a Democrat is because no matter who you are or where you're from, you deserve the freedom to thrive. And government can help make that happen. Reducing the high cost of living, increasing wages, expanding access to affordable health care and retirement. I'd like to see the state pension plan, our retirement system, and the state health insurance plan opened up that any individual could buy into, or any small business. Those things can be transformative, right? And Democrats should be working to make government help you, and then get out of the way and the personal stuff. At the same time, we cannot ignore the enormous threat that the Republican regime poses to our democracy, to our fundamental rights and freedoms. And I think part of the problem that many Democrats are having is that they are afraid or unwilling to really just be honest about what is happening in this country. And people can see it. They see it on TikTok. You know, we have a masked paramilitary force acting in a completely unconstitutional and lawless fashion. They're snatching people off the street. They're pulling babies out of their beds, screaming at night, using military tactics in American cities against Americans. And that is unacceptable. And Democrats need to stand up and say so. We need to not be afraid to say our freedoms are not safe under this authoritarian, and we have to do everything we can to fight back. And as governor, I'm going to do everything in my power to help protect Wisconsinites from the ways in which we're being harmed by what Republicans in Washington are doing.
So what is everything? Like, it's hard to know. I don't know. I think a lot of governors are struggling right now with, like, how do you actually respond to the National Guard being in your cities, to ICE being in your cities? Like, what steps do you take to actually fight back against that?
Well, I think we're seeing governors like J.B. Pritzker of Illinois show how it can be done. First of all, we have to cooperate. We have to work with other governors who are facing this threat and make sure that our public safety resources, our law enforcement resources at the state and local levels are not being co-opted. We need them out there keeping our communities safe, investigating serious crimes, not being diverted into, you know, these essentially kidnappings without due process, where they're not targeting specific individuals who they think might have done something wrong. They're just sweeping up anybody who is speaking Spanish or, you know, is on the wrong street corner at the wrong time. But I've also helped introduce legislation to stop them from being able to mask themselves. If you're making an arrest and you're acting in the public good, you should have no reason to hide your identity. In a democracy, all law enforcement is accountable to the people, and we can't have these secret police carrying out these operations without any ability to know who they are.
Let's cross the street here.
Yeah.
Why are you different from other Democrats who have said similar things in the past that people feel like haven't delivered on their promises?
Well, I actually have a track record of delivering. And I think that's, we've got a lot of good people running for governor in this primary, but nobody has the depth of experience that I do in state government and the track record of actually getting things done. My over 25 years of making progressive change, I've been able to pass bills in Democratic legislatures, in Republican legislatures, in split legislatures, on all kinds of really important and challenging topics, from reproductive rights and healthcare to public education to criminal justice reform. And we're going to have a tiny little window of opportunity in 2027 to really change the trajectory of our state, when 30 of the last 32 years we've had Republican dominance in the legislature. We're only going to be able to take advantage of that if we have a governor who is ready to go on day one. I'm not new to politics. I'm not, only been doing this for a couple of years. I actually have served on the state budget committee, so I know the budget intimately. And I think when it comes to electing a governor, that experience really, really matters and is the difference between being effective at getting your policies passed into law and not.
Do you have any final message for students who might vote or for anyone who might watch the video?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from constituents, especially from students. I'm on campus all the time and would love to hear from you about what's important to you. But I'm going to do my best to make sure that this is a place where you can build a life if you want to. You don't have to go out of state for opportunity. I want you to be able to live here in Wisconsin, have a good life, have a great career, be able to buy a house and do the things that you want to.